Karen Whitmore arrived in the neighborhood like a storm disguised in a floral blouse. As soon as she was elected HOA president, mostly because no one else wanted the job, she treated the position as if she'd been appointed head of a federal agency. Within the first week, she circulated a list of updated community standards, an 8-page document full of new rules nobody asked for: lawn height reduced by exactly 2 inches, trash bins must be placed at the curb for no longer than 18 minutes before pickup, porch lights must match the HOA-approved warm glow color temperature, and backyard decorations were suddenly under strict review. The neighbors grumbled, but Karen thrived on the sound of her own authority. She marched up and down the sidewalks with a clipboard like she was conducting military inspections. If a garden gnome leaned too far left, she wrote a warning. If a child left a bicycle near the driveway, she snapped a photo for documentation. The neighborhood slowly learned to fear the sound of her heels clicking on the pavement. Mark, however, remained unfazed. His house sat at the end of the street, with a tall wooden privacy fence that shielded his backyard from curious eyes. While most residents had grown accustomed to Karen's intrusive tendencies, Mark's mystery drove her wild. Every time she walked past his property, she slowed down, inspecting the fence as if she expected it to confess a violation on its own. What irritated her most was that Mark never engaged. He didn't attend HOA meetings. He didn't respond to her passive-aggressive emails. He didn't even flinch when a warning letter showed up in his mailbox for failure to participate in community improvement initiatives. Mark wasn't rude, he just preferred his peace. After years of city chaos, he had built his home and his backyard sanctuary as an escape. He maintained everything impeccably, but Karen didn't care. Her real obsession was that she couldn't control what she couldn't see. And Mark's yard was the one place in the neighborhood she hadn't inspected. Rumors quickly grew. One neighbor whispered that Mark had exotic pets. Another claimed he was hiding illegal construction. Karen fueled the gossip by telling everyone she was keeping an eye on him, even though she had no evidence anything was wrong. To Karen, Mark's privacy was not a right. It was a challenge. A locked door. A test of her authority. And she had already decided she wasn't going to lose. Karen's obsession with Mark's backyard had grown from curiosity into a full-on mission. She spent days pacing past his fence, stopping just long enough to squint through the narrow gaps between the boards. Every time she thought she heard something, a leaf blower, a soft thump, even the faint hum of a sprinkler, she became more convinced he was hiding something forbidden. The fact that she couldn't confirm it made her itch with frustration. Rules meant nothing if she couldn't enforce them, and Mark's silence felt like personal defiance. One warm afternoon, when she noticed Mark's car was gone, Karen decided she'd had enough. She marched back to her house, retrieved a tall aluminum ladder, and wheeled it across the street, trying and failing to look casual. A few neighbors peeked from their windows, but no one dared approach. Everyone knew when Karen was on a power trip, the best strategy was distance. She positioned the ladder against the privacy fence, wiping the sweat from her forehead as she muttered about neighborhood safety and responsibility. The moment she stepped onto the first rung, a spark of giddy triumph flickered in her chest. She was finally about to uncover whatever Mark was hiding, and the thought thrilled her far more than it should have. But the ladder wasn't stable. The ground was a little uneven, the fence wasn't meant to support weight, and Karen, too focused on her own mission, didn't bother checking. Halfway up, she paused to straighten her clipboard under her arm, shifting her weight just enough to tilt the ladder. She froze when she felt it wobble, gripping the top rung as her heart lurched. Then the whole thing slid sideways. The ladder scraped against the fence, rattling loudly before Karen toppled with it. She landed in Mark's backyard with a solid thud, followed by a groan that echoed off the trees. Her clipboard sailed through the air and smacked the ground beside her, pages fluttering everywhere like panicked birds. As she lay sprawled on the grass, trying to catch her breath, Karen scrambled for excuses. Trespassing? No, she was performing a community inspection. Climbing a ladder onto someone's private property? She could twist that into something official sounding. She just needed a moment to recover before spinning her story. But before she could pull herself together, she heard the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Mark had come home early. Panic washed over her. She wasn't supposed to be here, not legally, not ethically, not even logically. And judging by the way Mark's footsteps approached, she was out of time. Mark stepped through the side gate with a puzzled look, stopping cold when he saw Karen sitting on the grass, rubbing her elbow and surrounded by scattered papers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the ladder still rolling lazily on its side, as if mocking the situation. Mark raised an eyebrow, the picture of calm confusion. "Do I want to know what happened here?" he asked. Karen's face flushed a deep shade of red, but she snapped into her usual defensive tone. "I was conducting an authorized HOA inspection. Your yard has been a concern for some time, and the ladder slipped. Clearly, your fence isn't up to safety standards." She attempted to stand, but winced dramatically, hoping it would guilt Mark into sympathy. "It didn't. An inspection that involves climbing into my yard while I'm not home?" Mark folded his arms. "Pretty sure that's not in any HOA guidelines." Karen puffed up like a cornered pigeon. "As HOA president, I have the authority to ensure compliance. And you've been avoiding inspections. I have every right to trespass?" Mark's voice cut clean through her excuses. "To spy? To put yourself in danger on my property?" Karen's mouth opened, then shut just as quickly. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by the one resident she couldn't intimidate. So she changed tactics. "If you refuse to cooperate, I'll be issuing fines. Several, actually. Your yard may be hiding violations, and refusing inspection is itself a violation." Mark sighed, pulling out his phone. "Fine. Let's call the board and clarify this. I'd love to hear their stance." The shift in his tone made Karen nervous, but she confidently nodded. "Yes. Let's." The call didn't go the way she expected. When the HOA board answered, Mark spoke before she could twist the narrative. "Karen fell while attempting to climb over my fence without permission. Can you remind her whether HOA officials are allowed to enter private yards uninvited?" There was a long pause on the other end, then a stunned apology. Not to Karen, but to Mark. "Mr. Lawson," the board member said, voice suddenly respectful, "you already know you're exempt from standard inspections under the original development rules. We'll address this immediately." Karen blinked. "Exempt? Development rules? What is he talking about?" Mark simply pulled a folded document from his pocket, one he rarely needed to show, but always kept just in case. "Karen," he said quietly, "I'm the original developer of this neighborhood. I built these homes long before this HOA existed. Including yours." Karen's jaw dropped. All her power, her rules, her threats, her clipboard authority crumbled in an instant. She finally understood why the board had always treated Mark with careful respect. She had just tried to police the man who wrote the bylaws she abused. Karen stood frozen, her mind scrambling for any way to regain the authority that had just slipped through her fingers. But there was no saving this. Mark calmly handed her the folded document, and as she scanned the first few lines, her lips parted in disbelief. His name appeared everywhere: developer, landholder, architectural lead, and the original drafter of key HOA clauses. Clauses she had never bothered to read carefully because she assumed she already controlled everything. The silence stretched thick between them until she finally stammered, This must be outdated. The HOA has authority over all properties in the community. Except the ones excluded by the developer," Mark replied. "And I kept those rights. The board knows. You would have known too, if you'd actually read the documents you like to waive